Hello and welcome to this episode of Wise Human, episode number 2 with Katte Nesler. You will notice that in the interview I introduce her as Katie Rondeau. However, she has since gotten married and taken her partner's last name. So there you go. And I also wanted to give a trigger warning because in this episode, Katie speaks of childhood sexual abuse. She also speaks of being in a romantic relationship in adulthood in which she experienced domestic abuse. She doesn't go into details of the specifics of what happened in these situations, but she does speak about both. So I want to put that out there so you know that that is going to be a part of the podcast. I also want to put resources out if you are somebody who is experiencing domestic violence, domestic abuse within your home. There is a hotline you can call. It is 1-800-799-SAFE, which is 1-800-799-7233. That will also be linked in the bio. That is a hotline you can call to get help in the moment. Obviously, if you're in immediate danger, call 911. And then on the front of child abuse, if you know somebody that's experiencing child abuse or you are yourself, a number to call or text is 1-800-4-A-CHILD. That's 1-800-422-4453. And you can call or text that number. That will also be linked. Here is our episode with Katie. Today I have with me Katie Rondeau. And welcome, Katie.
Thank you.
I'm so excited to have you here. I think maybe, how do we know each other? Maybe let's just start with that. How did we meet? I was thinking about this. Do you remember?
I do. I think it was through, it was definitely yoga, but when and where, so it was somewhere in Detroit, and I think, oh goodness, I know the most recent time that we were together doing yoga was in Belle Isle by the fountain on a really cold but beautiful day. But the first time I know was well over a year ago.
Yes.
Oh, it was a truth.
Yeah.
It was a truth.
Okay.
Right?
That's what I was thinking, the mindful movement, right?
That's exactly what it was. Yes.
Okay.
Perfect. Thank you for jogging my memory.
Which is also an amazing nonprofit based in Detroit. So yoga. We met through yoga. I am just so stoked that when I put out a random call of, hey, I think I want to do this podcast, that you were one of the first people that showed up and said, I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to share my story.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm honored, first of all, and I just think that your energy and your presence is just so beautiful, so calming. I was just immediately stricken with you when I first met you, and I just thought of you as this powerful, wonderful, welcoming, just bringing people together, just strengthening, and especially on the feminine side. And that's what I was drawn to most about you. And so when I saw you say that, it was like, yes, this is it. I had no idea what I wanted to say or talk to you about or what your intentions were, but I was like, yes, I knew the energy would be good. And so I'm super honored.
That warms my heart so much to hear that. I'm just so excited for this journey and that you are here and open, and your energy is always super kind and fun and welcoming as well. I always it always puts a smile on my face when I see you. I know we don't see each other all that often or really spend time together, but it's always just boosts my mood when I see you.
Super.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Yay. I'm excited.
So I know when I originally asked you what you wanted to talk about, or maybe I'll just ask you, what do you want to talk about today?
Well, I mean, just life in general, and I guess just going forward with everything, our conversation right now going forward is just, everything really is what you put into it. And I know it's kind of almost a cliche saying, but it's become more and more apparent as the years have gone by for me. I'm like, oh yeah, every every action there's an opposite how does that saying go? I can't think of it right now. But whatever you put into it, like, you get out, right? Like, you reap what you sow. And so I just hope that whatever we can talk about today, that if anybody, is listening and needs to hear anything, I hope that I can reassure them that it really is what you put into it, you will get out of it. But the great thing about that is you are able to change your perspective and change, how you feel and how you face things going forward. So everything changes, and like I said, you get what you get out of it, what you put into it. So I don't know, I'm just ready to talk about life, anything, hardships, being grateful for just being alive, and knowing that even though right now might not be the most fun part of your life, it's not permanent.
Yes, nothing is permanent.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I know you gave me a few topics when we were messaging before the interview, so maybe we can dive into some of those and see what happens. How's that sound?
Sounds perfect. All right.
So I know this first one's it's a pretty serious topic. You experienced sexual abuse in your childhood, and are you open to talking about that today?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep.
I'm curious, maybe like, what was your childhood like before the abuse happened? Like, what kind of child were you?
Well, first of all, so I was the youngest. I am the youngest of 7 children, but I'm like the only sibling by my mother and my father. So my mom had 4 other children with different fathers, and then my dad had 3 other children by different mothers. And I'm not very close to them because we're all kind of spread out all over the United States, and also varying ages. Like, my next closest sibling, whom I wasn't close to when I was very young, she's 6 years older than me, and then from there it's 12 years older than me, and then so they're much older than I am, and so I'm only right now kind of close to 2 of those siblings. So I grew up north. It wasn't a glamorous lifestyle by any means. My parents got married when I think I was about a year, and then they got divorced shortly thereafter. They just weren't meant to be married or together, and that's totally fine. So I grew up with that, and then my dad worked hard, and then so did my mom. But then when I was about 2 or 3, my mom was diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and so I was very young, and she was in and out of the hospital. So my sister, that was I think 16 at the time, she basically raised me. She took care of me while my mom was in and out of the hospital. And so those are some of my earliest memories, I guess, going through that or experiencing that. Like, that was just what I knew. I didn't know anything else. So yeah, just kind of like not an upper class upbringing by any means. And I'm just thankful now that I was able to get out of that up north small town. Like, I like to go back and visit, but I definitely like to leave. So yeah, so that was that. And then the abuse, I guess, started to happen. It kind of gets like a little fuzzy there because I'm not like good with the time frame and stuff too, but I know I was also like with my sisters a lot at the time, and my eldest sister was married to someone who was enlisted in the Army, I believe. And so that's when that started to occur. And I have like still like vivid images and whatnot of those occurrences when I was very young. I think I was like anywhere from 3, 5, or 6. And yeah, and I think it lasted for a few years as far as I can tell. And I do recall at one point, like in my way, in a child's way of not knowing, but knowing that this maybe isn't right. I like my attempt to inform my mother in a way. I let her know. And it was kind of not with words. It was kind of more with like actions on my end. And then I did tell her what was happening with my brother-in-law in my way of saying that. And then she took it up with my sister, and they didn't believe me, and they didn't want to get him in trouble because he was enlisted, and it continued to happen. And they remained married as I grew older from there. I mean, we can go into more depth for whatever you want to. You can ask questions, but I had to definitely go to a lot of therapy about that. And now to this day, I mean, I'm 35. Me and my mother, I do not have a good relationship with my mother. I haven't spoken to that sister since I had the opportunity to choose not to. I haven't spoken to her since I was like 10 or 12. So there's like a overview. If you want to delve in, ask any questions from there. I was thinking that maybe we could talk about how my actions and behaviors kind of continued to be influenced as I grew up, and that's like more subconsciously. That's, just because it was a part of my framework and what occurred with like my psyche that I wasn't even necessarily aware of. And then just how I approached maybe say authority or relationships, like being a boyfriend, girlfriend as a teenager and such. And because this is all stuff that I've had the opportunity to look back on over the years and just maybe kind of think, oh, well, maybe that was because of this, or this happened because of that. So I know that's really, like I said, really vague and really out there and open, but feel free to ask any questions. I'm willing to give any specifics that you want to kind of investigate, if you will.
Katie, I appreciate your openness to share. And it's so obvious just in what you've shared so far. It's so obvious that you've been doing the work, that you've healed so much within yourself and maybe even forgiven. So this started when you were 3 or 4, maybe a little bit older.
Right around those ages, I think. 3, 4, 5, 6. I know it was during the time my mother was like dealing with chemo, and so I was still very young and had to stay with like my sisters, my older sisters at the time and such. So yeah, I'd say right around those ages. And then because like at that time, my parents had been divorced, and my mom like didn't. She made it very. This is probably a whole nother episode, but she made it very, very difficult for my father to see me, and you know, up from where I come from, it's very like low education, right? Like, the people up there, it's mostly agricultural, car racing, deer hunting. Not that I'm saying that anything's bad with that at all, but some people up there don't necessarily realize that they have certain resources available to them. And also I'm trying to not play devil's advocate for my father, because he was an adult and he could have taken steps as well. But it was just, they had a toxic relationship. It wasn't good for either of them or for their child. And so there's that.
Okay. And so you don't remember when this first started? Like, do you remember the first time?
So I definitely have memories and images, and almost they're tactile too. It's really a strange thing. It's like it's kind of an out of body experience, but I'm also the person inside this avatar that's me but isn't me. So I can see what's happening, I can feel, and then also there's this weird phenomenon, if you will. Like, I'm also a different it's so strange to like say this stuff out loud, because I've never said it out loud before. I've only thought it. Not only am I the observer, but I am the person experiencing, and then I'm also the person like controlling but not controlling. It's really an interesting kind of an image and a memory to experience. I do remember, and I will also make note that at that time, my sister and my brother-in-law, they had a daughter who was actually my age. So she's my niece, but she's like a year younger than I am, because my sister was in her 20s at that time. So she was much older. Like I said, there's such an age range. She's much older than I am. So she had a daughter that was a year younger than me, her sister. And that daughter, my niece, had cerebral palsy. And my brother-in-law was also not only sexually abusing me, he was sexually abusing his own daughter. And so that was occurring. These are all parts of my memories, what I still, like I said, so vividly can see and feel. And it's taken me a long time to get to this point, Nicole, to be able to discuss it like this. I just want you to know. I said I went through years of therapy as a teenager and in my 20s, and I also want to note that I am proud of myself for being able to discuss this with you. So thank you for giving me a safe space to be able to do this. So I appreciate you.
Thank you for trusting me and for sharing. Thank you for doing the work for yourself so that you can share. And in sharing, like, we help each other heal. You know, it's healing for the sharer, it's healing for the listener. And that's what I want to do on this podcast, is share our stories and empower each other and heal together.
No, I mean, I think that's also something that takes a long time to be able to see, is just being vulnerable. Dude, it sucks. Like, it's no fun at all. Like, it's no fun to be low on the totem pole. It's no fun to be green. It's no fun to say, like, man, I don't know this. I don't know what's going on right now. But in the act of being able to do so, that's where you create the opportunity to take that next step to say, yeah, I don't know this, but I am soon going to be able to know this and know how to navigate this and know how to feel and know how to kind of divert or kind of like change my feelings down a new path and kind of go from there. And that, I feel, has been really valuable to me in like every aspect of my life. Like I said, it's taken me a long time to get here. I'm 35, and right now at this point in my life, I feel the happiest I've ever felt. I feel the youngest, literally the youngest that I've ever felt in my life, and the most curious. And I think also too, if someone is able to kind of like cognitively reframe their thoughts, like, oh, I'm nervous about this, and say, oh, I'm excited about this, then that changes the whole energy, like the way that everything just is kind of vibrating, and then you can go from there and have like the opportunity and the courage to just kind of take that next step. But man, it's so powerful to be able to say, I don't know this, but what is it? Like, what can I do? Where can I go from here? What is this offering to me? Like, life isn't doing this to me. Like, what is life trying to do? What observation can I take from all of this? Like, what can I see and kind of step back from all of this and go from there? But man, it takes a long time. It's not an overnight process. Maybe for some people it is, and that's excellent. Super. I applaud you. But yeah, it's like the one step in front of the other, the one foot in front of the other, and kind of what it is.
Yeah,
kind of got off track there, but it felt good.
No, share what I trust that what needs to come through is coming through. We are all connected. We're all divine. It's all happening exactly the way it should be. And I think you made some really great points. Yeah, it is. It is when you can trust. It, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many times when I don't, I know, and I'm like strangling life, and life doesn't work very well that way. It doesn't like that. It doesn't want to be controlled.
No, absolutely not, dude. But it's scary, like, right? It's scary to, like, be vulnerable and kind of let that control down. And, I mean, more often than not, like, everybody I know wants to be able to control, like, oh, my gosh, I don't know what's happening, or they're freaking out because they're like, oh, this is a bad letter I received in the mail, and I don't know what to do. And you just have to take a step back, like you said, trust that everything that you've put into it and that everything that you need is already inside of you to go forward. And again, that this is your opportunity to showcase like everything that you're working on or everything that you want to become too. I mean, that's another good point too. I just realized that when we don't know and when we put ourselves out there and we're like, oh, I want to work on my patience, or I need to work on time management, or some little thing like that. And then all of a sudden something comes up and it's like, oh my gosh, I am not going to be able to do this. Like, I am not exhibiting patience. Why is this so frustrating right now? Why did all of this happen to me right now? And that's because it's the opportunity for you to kind of fine tune that skill and like hone in that skill. And the universe has a really beautiful way of like working on that and kind of like, oh, you want to be more patient? Well, here's a couple of things to try that out on.
Yes, I couldn't help but laugh when you were saying that, because it's so true. The universe is always listening. The universe, God, spirit, your higher self, whatever you want to call that energy, it's listening. Right. and it delivers. If you want to say I'm broke and poor or there's no good men, like, you're going to meet really shitty men and you're going to be broke and poor. But if you want to say I'm abundant, there's plenty of opportunity, that's going to come to you. And so, when you're working on patience, you're going to get tested a lot.
Yeah.
And each time it's going to give you an opportunity to either go into your old patterns of being impatient or take pause and decide to try a different route. And it may work, it may not work, but every time you decide to try something else, you're finding what does work for you. And then the more you do the thing that does work, the more you rewire your brain. So eventually, over time, and it's not easy, and it takes a lot of work and a lot of practice, then that will become your default in the situation.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I couldn't have said it better myself. It's exactly, nail, what is it? Hammer on the nail. Good job, Nicole. That's exactly it.
So I wanna kind of circle back around to the abuse that you had in your childhood, and we don't have to go into details of what specifically happened, because I don't think that that's the important thing to focus on, unless it's something that you specifically feel that you need to share and get out. I think that, it's about the journey of, when did you realize it was wrong? When did you even know it was wrong when it first happened? And even that's probably not even that important. What's really important is, how did you move through it? Like, so this is happening, not that I don't want to say that that's not important, because it's all important. All of the story is important. I'm just trying to figure out what direction is going to be the most beneficial to our listeners. And I think that sharing, what was your process? So you're in it, right? You're in it. This is happening. I can't even imagine what happened when you went, you realized that something might not be right here. And so then you went to your family. I know there's that victim's remorse. Is that what it is? Or where you almost feel guilty, like you feel you did something wrong? I've experienced that to a very small level. And I'm like, did you experience something like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, especially when, like I said, I didn't have very many words at that age, but I knew something was off, for lack of a better, term. So it had been going on for a little while, and then I just didn't feel something in me. I didn't want to go back over there. I didn't want to go, but I went because that's what Mom wanted me to do, right? And then, so I remember finally, one night I was home, with my mom, and, she wasn't feeling well either. But so I touched her, and she was like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "This is what my brother-in-law does to me." And she was like, "What?" And so I kind of went from there, and because that was my only way as a 4-year-old or whatever, to be able to this is the norm that I'm currently experiencing, right? And I knowing also something was kind of off, and going from there. So then I did that. I tried to express that to my mother, and she then talked to my sister about it. And because my brother-in-law at the time was enlisted in the Army, they didn't want to get him in trouble. And so it kind of continued on. And I guess from there, those next few years of my life were just kind of a blur. And then fast forward to, I guess I'll share with you another poignant memory of mine when I'm let's see here. I started living on my own when I was about 16. I moved in with one of my best friends from high school because I didn't want to be with my mom anymore. And then when I did get my own apartment with two other friends when I was about like 18 or 19 or whatever. I remember getting ready for my job at the time, and my mom called, and like I said, it was just a really strained relationship. And so there's always contention whenever she called me, and even still to this day, but I'm working through it so hard. So she called me when I was like, I don't know, 18 or 19, like I said, and I don't remember the context of the situation, but I was in the bathroom getting ready for work, and something came up, and I said something probably really snarky because I didn't have a very good attitude either. And then her response was, "Oh, you've always used that as an excuse, and that never happened," referring to like the sexual trauma. And I remember like I like just fell onto my bathroom floor, like convulsing, just like I've never sobbed like that before or since, thankfully. And just like, so I didn't go to work, I guess, that night. But I mean, just those were some, and I was even in therapy at that time. Like that was when I was on my own. I was seeking out therapy. I lived in Saginaw, and it was probably not like some of the best institutions to receive therapy from, I'm sure. Because like I said, I was working, trying to go to college. They didn't have much money, didn't have good insurance, so I just took what was available to me. And that's probably another idea for a podcast for you, as far as like health insurance goes and the lack of access to like quality mental health. But I was at least doing something because I knew, like, it was something inside of me that knew I did not want to end up like my mom, like bitter and just, you know, the way she is. And so it was like something inside of me, I have no idea where it came from, told me to go to therapy, and like I've got to do something, and this is the only thing that I know how to do. So that's what I did. And I couldn't tell you where any of that draw or motivation like really came from, I guess. But
had you been to therapy? Had you been to therapy prior to seeking that help?
No, it was in my teens. I can't recall like at what age I decided to. I think it was actually when my mom kicked me out, and when I was in high school, and that's when I moved into my best friend's parents' house when I was 16. And then my mom was trying to get me to come back to her, and it was my best friend's parents told me to say that I would only move back in with my mom if we both went to therapy. And so that's where it started. It was because of my best friend's parents in high school. So I started seeking out therapy then, and my mom didn't, and so I didn't move back in with her. And so that was that struggle, and she was just upset with me from then on, like, because I was gaining independence, and I made my own choices, and I moved out when I was 16, and she no longer had like that kind of control over me, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
So it was about when I was 16 for seeking out therapy. So
that's amazing. Excuse me, that's amazing as a 16-year-old to know that to know that something's not right, that you don't want to end up a certain way, and to take the steps to make that change, to trust your intuition, to trust your friend's family.
Right.
That's huge, you know, like as a 16-year-old, it takes, adults can't even do that, you know?
Right. Yeah, no, I was very fortunate. My best friend, I'll say her name, Katrina, her and I had a lot of fun, and her family, like they took me in because they knew, they could see what I was going through. They knew it, and they were like, nope, come here, go to high school, finish, graduate, do what you need to do. And like they expected me to, like I had a job, like I worked at the Bavarian Inn in Frankenmuth as, when I was in high school. So I was doing that. I didn't need to pay anything. They just wanted me to like be into, like have my own money for like my car insurance and my gas and stuff, and go to school, stay in school. That was like the only requirements. And then so they suggested therapy. And so I started it, and I liked it because it made me feel better. Like it made me feel better. Like I could talk to somebody, and like I could openly just like cry to somebody, and she didn't judge me, like, and like she made me feel like it's okay, and that I wasn't the only one kind of dealing with something like that, because it's so hard. Like it's still so hard to this day that like I see some female friends who just are so close to their mom, right? Like they go out and get their nails done, or like their moms help them with this, and like I never experienced that. And so I was upset. That like other people had nice moms and I didn't. And so I was also like angry at that. And also though, one thing that did come from that is knowing how it showed me how I did not want to ever parent, or how I did not ever want to treat anybody else ever. And I think that really was extremely beneficial, that I saw I was able to kind of like cognitively reframe it in that light, because now I have an 8-year-old stepdaughter, and seeing like a child, like I've been dating her dad for over 5 years now, and just now seeing like a little toddler, like how could anybody ever treat a little baby, a little kid, like with that in such a way? Like I know that she's going to grow up one day, and she's going to remember how I treated her, and it's going to influence her path no matter what, just because like I've been here solidly for over 5 years, and her and I are so close. I'm so thankful to have her. She's the brightest little ray of sunshine. It's ridiculous how sweet she is. And just seeing her, I think about my mom. I'm like, how could you ever, even if a child wasn't sweet, like how could you ever not just want to love and care for them? So I think it really helped me. And I'm super fortunate. I think this is super cool that I get to be able to hang out with such a rad little kid. She's always on the computer. She's so smart. She's showing me things about like YouTube, and she plays Roblox all the time, and she's just got this like super inquisitive, like bright, positive. I don't know how she's so positive all the time. But she's a really good kid, and I feel very fortunate. So.
And she's lucky to have you, a strong female role model. It really is something hanging out with kids. They like bring you back to the present moment and what's truly important.
Yeah.
And make you kind of forget that all these things that you think are worries are really like, really? Why are you concerned with that? Like, be here now.
Yep. You don't need to clean the dishes right now. You can hang out with me and watch me dress up my avatar. All right, cool. Show me. Let's do it. Heck yeah, this is way more fun. Yeah, I am going to do this. But so it's really cool. Like I feel, it's so funny, Nicole. Like I think about these like things, like, right, and then sometimes I don't think about them for a long time, and then like I get so busy, like I'm in school right now and just about to graduate, and so it's just like things kind of take like not necessarily a back burner, but definitely I'm putting the things of importance like these are my focus right now, and then now just kind of like talking to you and saying all this stuff out loud, it's just like, whoa, okay, all right, okay, that happened. I experienced that. That was like a different like ghost of me at a different time. And I honestly, like, there were certain times in my life, and this was after I got out of my 6-year-long like physically abusive relationship. In my 20s, I lived on my sister's couch in her basement for like a year and a half, just trying to get the wind back in my sails, or just like trying to even kind of get back on my feet. It was a process, but I remember those nights, every night, just like crying myself to sleep. I'm just like, life can't be this hard, right? Like, I just want to be happy.
So what happened? How did you change that? How did you get from that couch, crying every night for over a year, to where you are today?
I couldn't tell you, but I don't know what happened. And I'm super grateful. Like, I think that I have a pretty cool existence. Not to be egotistical, but man, I love myself. And these are super happy tears that are happening right now. I just want you to know that.
Yeah.
Yeah, dude, there wasn't one thing. It was just, I guess now saying it out loud, all along there's been something inside of me that's like, no, there's better. There's an easier way to live. There's a happier way to exist. You can be fulfilled. And also, I guess this might be an interesting or important tidbit of information. So I grew up, my mom, like when she was diagnosed with cancer when I was very young, she became like a born-again Christian. She was raised strict Catholic. And then like she had, and that's probably a whole nother episode too, she had a really difficult childhood, like strict Italian Catholic upbringing. And then she got pregnant at like a very young age and was kind of disowned by her family, and then went into like abusive alcoholic marriages. So like my mom had a really hard, difficult upbringing as well. And then so she got diagnosed with ovarian cancer, and then she became a born-again Christian. And so we kind of turned to the church. Like really, honestly, her faith got her through. Like to this day, if nothing else, my mom is a woman of God. Like, right? That's her claim to fame. And I'm not saying it in a bad way at all, but that's what, if nothing else, my mom has been diligent with her faith and her religion, right? So that was my upbringing. And then in my teens, I turned away from it. And I don't necessarily subscribe to like atheist or agnostic or anything. I really believe that it's how good of a person, like what is actually in your heart, that's what's most important, and how you treat other people and other living things. And I really feel that, and this is coming full circle to the beginning of when we started talking, that what you put into life, you're going to get out. And I just had that kind of, not necessarily craving, but that drive that this is a good life. It's special. I can make it special. I can make it really special. I can make it really fun. And I can really find out what my current avatar, like this human body that I've been given, like what I can do with this. And I'm still like fine tuning it, right? I'm still figuring out like what exactly I like, what exactly I want. And I'm 35, like I'm just about to graduate and like start on the second career of my life. And so it's not like, nothing in life is just really this linear path. There's no, you know, point A to point B to point C. There's like, you know, you fall off, you go backwards, you go forwards. There's all this stuff that happens. But I had also thought too, at a certain point, that I'm going to graduate high school, I'm going to go to college, married, house, baby, and I will be, that is what will make me happy. And then I kind of figured out, nope, that's not what's going to make me happy. But I did go to college, and then I got into a job that I didn't like, and then I went from there. Then I got into a bad relationship where I made that choice. I made those decisions because I wanted love so much. I wanted someone to love me so much because I never had it before in my life. And so that's why I wanted to make that really terrible relationship work, because I was seeking that love, right? I was seeking that kind of fulfillment. And like, if I get this, this will fill every void ever. Like, right, this is what's missing. And come to find out, you know, restraining order later, 6 years later, like $20,000 in debt later, that I wasn't loving myself. And then I started to kind of work on that. And it's been really cool, Nicole, to try and like figure out how to love myself. And I think that's the answer to your question. What was it that got me from there, that couch every night, to making my way to here, is that I kind of like started to find that little teeny tiny voice like deep inside me that I never thought to listen to before. And then finally, it wasn't a little teeny tiny voice anymore. It was like screaming at me. And then I've kind of just been on that path of like, hey, let's see what this avatar likes, and what this mind and soul is actually like put here to experience. And it's been super cool. Super duper cool. So yeah, I like myself a lot. I love myself. And it's not like in an egotistical way, but I hated myself for so long. And I think in fighting with myself and like trying to ignore and push something onto myself that I thought was the right thing was really a bad thing. And now that I see that it's like really kind of cool to listen to me and try and figure out what this life is all about and what works for me, and kind of being selfish sometimes, which some people don't like. And if they're on the outside of like me being selfish and creating boundaries and limits, and it doesn't please them, then that's when I've kind of learned like, all right, well then this isn't gonna make me happy anymore. So I'm still new in my journey with it. I mean, I don't think I started feeling comfortable with my human skin till I was about 30, and that was only a few years ago. And it's been an eye-opening journey. And I'm not perfect, bro. I'm not perfect by any way, shape, or form. I am just in the beginning, little baby steps of like this process. But yeah, I think it was just that drive to maybe know more, see more, feel more, and on that path, knowing what I would like to see, what I would like to feel, and just kind of go from there. So yeah, it's been a pretty okay ride so far. Yeah, I kind of got off track. I don't remember what you asked, but I hope that helps.
You brought it full circle from the couch.
Cool.
From the couch, yeah. You Dark Night of the Soul. Are you familiar with Joseph Campbell?
I am not. No.
So he talks about the dark night of the soul, which is the hero's journey is his whole teaching, and any big movie has the hero's journey. Like the hero, life is life, and then the hero comes up against some adversity. They have to leave their comfort zone. Then they have the dark night of the soul, where it's this really challenging time, and then the light comes and they learn the lesson, and then it loops back around. So every time you're kind of upgrading yourself, right? Every time you learn a little bit more, you become more comfortable in your own skin. You know more of what you want, and I truly believe that we're different people at different points in our life. There's new versions of us constantly, and when we get stuck and try to hold on to one version, it can create a lot of disease in our body, because we're not meant to be the same thing our whole life. So you telling your story just made me think of Joseph Campbell and the hero's journey. But I'm so curious. So you had this knowing when you were on that couch and in this not great place, where you knew there had to be something better in life, and you trusted this tiny little voice that you had inside of you saying there is something better. There's something more out there. You deserve to be happy. How did you, I think people would be really interested to know, how did you start tuning into that voice more and start trusting that voice?
Well, so at that time, so I was at my sister's, and while I was in that really bad relationship, I knew, there was always this pull, I knew I wanted to go back to school. I knew I wasn't happy with the job that I was doing, and I was, I was reaching for anything to go back to school for. And also, my boyfriend at the time, his nickname for me was Stupid Girl, and told me that I didn't need to go back to school. So there was, it was also
that's horrible. I'm sorry. I just have to say, you were such a sweet soul.
It was, so we were two hurt people. This is what I learned in therapy, right? We were two hurting people. He had a really bad upbringing too. His father was hooked on heroin and beat him and I'm not doing devil's advocate stuff, but I'm there is a story to it, and I've forgiven him. It's taken me a long time, but he was hurting too, and he still is, or maybe he still is. I don't know. Maybe he found help, but he just didn't know the way, right? He didn't have the resources or that, that voice inside of him that he wanted to listen to. And now I'm forgiven, and I'm he was hurting. Hope he finds help, but I never want to see him again. So that was something during that time I had to fight with too. I'm I wasn't happy with what I was doing. I wanted to just go to school. And then so when I finally got out of that relationship, I was at my sister's, and there was a master's program through Central, and for counseling, and I was gosh, I want to help people. And I'm if nothing else, this experience that I've just gotten out of, maybe if I can help one woman, that was my thing. I'm if I can help one woman, because I knew it was so difficult for me to get out of that relationship. And I'm we're not married, we don't have kids, I am a college educated, I had my bachelor's at that time, and I'm like, if it was so hard for me to get out of that situation as an educated, single, no child woman, how hard is it for other women who don't have an education, who are married and stuck into it and have like 3 kids, dealing with the justice system and the police officers during that time. I had one police officer, when I called like during a domestic dispute, the police officer told me, honey, sometimes it's easier just to stay. And I just I could not believe that. I was like, what's going on at your house? Like, I was crying in my, at that time, but I was like, thought to myself, I'm like, what are you putting your wife through? So there was that. I was like, if I can help one woman with my story, that would make all the difference in this, right? So I started going back for the Master's of Counseling to be a therapist. And I got a few semesters in and realized that the college wasn't accredited. So even though like if I did graduate, I would still have to take more classes afterwards. And since I was like in such a transitional phase at that time, I decided to stop that program. But when I was going to that program, I met another lady. She was a few years older than me. And basically, her and I were in almost the exact situation. Like, she was just fresh out of a marriage, a not good marriage. And so she kind of like took me in under her wing. So I moved in with her. And she was very like spiritual. She was a lot into like yoga and like the metaphysical, and really kind of like got me on that path. And so she dropped out the same time I did, and then she really like helped me grow spiritually, because at that time I wasn't subscribing to Christianity anymore, but I knew that there was something bigger than me out there, and that this like was special, but I didn't know like how. And so she kind of like helped me grow in that aspect, and I was really fortunate to know her during that time, because she helped me grow and like think about things differently, because she was, like I said, she was probably about like 7 years older than me at the time. And so that was a really good like little, I guess, detour in the road, if you will. I considered her a mentor during that time. And she, like I said, really helped me grow spiritually and become more in tune with myself, and helped kind of frame my mental focus kind of more onto myself, and helped me realize that it was important to really focus on myself and have a healing process, or at least start that healing process. So that was that. And so that was how I got off of my sister's couch and moved in with her. Kind of had that journey for, I think, 1.5 years or so. But like I said, it was so important in me growing to like understand myself, the way I worked, the way I thought, especially in conjunction with like the metaphysical world, and kind of following that path into getting me here.
I love how life presents you the opportunities when you're ready.
Right.
Like in that moment, you clearly did not meet her by accident. I don't think we meet anybody by accident, but it was,
no.
They say when the student's ready, the teacher appears, right?
Yes. Yeah. No, absolutely. No, I don't know what I would have done if it weren't for her. she just was so wise, right? And like so knowledgeable and so understanding. And she's like one of the first, not stranger, but like my sister I talked to, but she was my sister. But she was like one of my first friends, acquaintances, like non-family members that I had available to me to talk to. And she didn't judge me, like, because like I said, she had went through an extremely similar thing at that exact same time with her ex-husband. She was still going through it like I was too. So we were sharing in like those similarities. And she was trying to find her way too. She was trying to go back to school. She was trying to better herself. She knew also like there was more. And she was really a godsend. It was super cool. She helped me start to feel comfortable with my own self and like start the healing process, and just it was such a like comforting thing. Like she was also like almost a maternal figure, I guess, because I never really had one other than my sister. And so she was like really helpful in guiding me, and or at least giving me something to think about, something new to think about. So yeah, that was something I needed for sure, that I didn't know I needed. And the funny thing is, like the cohort, for Central, they only accepted like 20 people, right? So what were the chances? And like she had just moved from, the southwest part of the United States up here, and I had just moved to that Lansing area from Traverse City. And yeah, it was a super, like, not even a coincidence, but it just happened at the same time. And so she really helped me on my spiritual journey and kind of like honing in that skill, or that fine-tuning, that listening to myself, or at least finding that voice and following it from there.
It's a beautiful, beautiful connection that you guys have.
Very thankful for it.
So from there, because I know you're in school for physical therapy, right?
Yeah, so right now I am in my last year to become a physical therapist assistant. So I will be graduating soon. So
congratulations, by the way. That's so exciting. I just want to put that out there. So I'm curious. So you were in this program to become a counselor, decided that wasn't the right path. Then you start to really, you meet this woman, and you have this, shift in your being and how you tune into yourself. How did you get from there to deciding that physical therapy was what you wanted to go into?
Okay, well, that's so from there, so then I lived with her for about a year and a half, and like I wasn't going to school. I was just like kind of doing a working from home type thing. And then something came up that there were complications like with her divorce, and so she had to move like back to New Mexico it was, and so she had to go take care of stuff because there was property involved, I guess, that she had to go take care of and whatever. So from there, I moved from Lansing to Ypsi because I started talking to, and this is so still now I'm like kind of like fine tuning, like listening to myself, what makes me happy, but also what's good for me. So I start talking to a guy I had known for, I guess, in and out of time for a really long time. He was my first kiss in second grade, like, right, weird story. And then, yeah, like, right, there's all the unrequited love that comes from here. So and then, like, we're each other's first kiss in second grade. And then when we're, like, 17, we're both working at Bavarian Inn. in the same shop at the same time. And like, mind you, our second grade class was like 3 hours north of the Frankenmuth Bavarian Inn. So what a coincidence that we meet each other when we were like 17. We dated when we were 17 for a little bit, and then he cheated on me, completely broke my heart. Never wanted to talk to him again, forgot about him. And then so when I'm like getting out of my really bad relationship and then living with Dana, and Dana needs to go back to New Mexico, and then somehow, I don't remember the reason why, I start talking to this guy again that broke my heart when I was 18, and I'm like, oh my goodness, it's the universe is showing me a sign, right? Like, this is making me feel happy, like, right? This is perfect. Everything's lining up, right? This is all new stuff that I'm just now being introduced to, and I'm like, oh, if this isn't a sign, I don't know what is. So I move. So I'm just like really like positive and really like good things are going to happen, right? That was me at that time. Like, good things are happening. And so I moved from Lansing to Ypsi to be with my then boyfriend again. And, but I don't move in with him. That's like the stipulation, because I'm like, well, he cheated on me once. So I moved there. We date again for about a year, and then he cheats on me again. So there's that. Yeah. So from there, I'm in Ypsi. I'm meeting people there. This is like, so Ypsi is kind of like another rebirth for me, I guess, if you will. So I'm in Ypsi, still like trying to decide what to do for school, still like working from home, meeting people, like, right, spreading my wings and like having a social scene, because I didn't have friends in Traverse City. I didn't have friends like while I was up there. And so this is like my first introduction to people my age and living in an Ypsi life, which Ypsi is the coolest little town, I must say. I had so much fun. I met really, really good people there. I started to like expand my wings there, and kind of start to figure out who I was, you know, what I wanted to do, where I was going, like what felt good. And so there, let's see. So I was living on my own with like other roommates, and then that was when that boyfriend like cheated on me. I downloaded Tinder because I was like, F it, why not? All my friends are on Tinder, you know, everyone's having fun this way. And then, so it was specifically that night, the first night I downloaded Tinder, I was driving with my one friend to Urbana, Illinois to see, I think it was Walk the Moon, a concert down in Urbana, Illinois, which was like an 8-hour drive. I had my amazing little 1990 Honda Civic. It was beat up, all rusty, but this thing was a tank. And we're driving 8 hours all the way down there. We finally get there. We're just about to pull in the hotel parking lot. I'm stopped at a stoplight, and I get rear-ended. Hard. Thankfully, there were no other people like driving in the intersection. But like I was driving a 1990 Honda Civic that was like a rust bucket, and like basically completely totaled it. But it was still like somewhat drivable by a miracle. So my friend and I, like, we were like, okay, the police come, like, write up this report, all this other stuff. We're like, all right, well, we're here for the concert. We go check in the hotel, go to the concert, and then, like, start the whole process, like, the next day, the insurance. And thankfully, Illinois is a at-fault state. So the person who rear-ended me, basically, their insurance paid for my car. Like, they totaled it out and gave me way more than that car was ever worth. they paid for a rental car while I looked for a new car, and they paid for physical therapy. So, silver lining, my car's totaled. I have to go to physical therapy because I have whiplash, and I fall in love with it. And it's a program in my backyard in Ipsy that's only a 2-year program. And I'm like, heck yeah, let's do this. So I'm going to physical therapy. I'm getting better. My whiplash is getting better. I downloaded Tinder that night right after the accident. And my first Tinder date is the guy that I'm engaged to right now. So
I love it. Oh my goodness.
So there's that. I know that was a lot to process, but yeah, so I get rear-ended, I download Tinder, I start going back to school, I'm now engaged, about to graduate. So there was that, like, from there to here in a few short sentences, as short and sweet as possible. So yeah, and I mean, all of this has had its own, like, ups and downs. Nothing's ever, like I said, a linear straight line. But yeah, now I still have a Honda now, and I love Hondas. I will always have a Honda, and
I have a Honda Civic as well.
Dude, Honda Civics, they are tanks. I tell you what, man. That 1990 Honda Civic, the one that got totaled, I cried. I literally went to pick up the belongings from the mechanic shop, and I took the emblem off the hood. I still have that emblem, and I was sobbing in the mechanic's shoulder. This guy didn't even know, because I was like, this is my last goodbye to my baby, my Honda Civic. That was my first liberating purchase, right? Because when I came out of my bad relationship, there was a Jeep involved and stuff, and a lot of debt involved, and he tried to cut my Jeep brake wires. It's just, that was a whole long story too. So I sold that Jeep, and with the money I made from that, I bought the Honda Civic with cash, and that was my first defining purchase, and that was my sign of independence, that Honda Civic. So that's why that was so sad. That was such a sad day when that happened, and I had to total it and say goodbye, but super also silver lining, right? So it was a really good, a super bittersweet thing that happened with that. And I'll never forget that car. That car was a tank.
It was almost like that was the closing of one chapter and the opening of a new.
For sure.
That moment that seemed well, this is a shit moment. I just got rear-ended. I now have to deal with all these things. But look at where it led you. It's incredible how everything can change in a moment. We hear that all the time, right? Everything can change in a moment. But you forget that until it's happening. You're like, oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Literally everything changed overnight for you.
Absolutely. And it's so cliche. For me to even say out loud, oh, that changed everything. I'm but dude, yeah, it did. It really did. I was set from that moment on a new path, on a completely new trajectory, right? And I didn't even know it. I was just living it. I'm all right, well, okay, we're doing it now. There's no turning back. So
but you did the work. You did the work up until that point, and you trusted. You didn't resist it. You went along with it. You were in the flow of life. It was happening, and you can't change it, but you can change your attitude, and you went with it, and look at what life delivered to you. That's it's super cool. Such a beautiful and empowering story.
Yeah. It's just so crazy to say these words out loud and be I remember, I can really feel the feelings of despair and heartache and hopelessness. I remember living those times, but I'm my God, it's so visceral, but at the same time I'm it's not even, was that me? That was me? Okay, all right. That's weird, but I guess it was me. I guess if I can say anything to anybody, and if they can take like one little thing, one little tidbit from this, is that, man, there are gonna be really long, hard, difficult, terrible, like awful nights, like whatever you're feeling, just like this despair and this hopelessness, and that it's eating you up inside, and there's no hope. Like, I've literally been there. I've felt it. I'm feeling it now. I'm like living through it again. But man, you've got to take that first step to want to be better, to do better, to know better, to feel better. I mean, because I just as well could have like done nothing and did the whole, like, well, this happened to me and this is the way it is and this is how it's going to go. I could have easily just prescribed to that thought.
Gone into the victim mindset.
Sure. Yeah. And like, it's super easy. It would have been super easy to do that, right? But my fiance has like a thing. He's like, if it feels good, typically don't do it. He's like, if sending that email feels good to say that one snarky thing, do not do it. Right? So if it feels good or if it feels easy, it's kind of that path of like least resistance. I mean, there is definitely more available out to you. And like, my life also could be completely different right now too. I couldn't have, like, we could have decided to not go to that concert that night, my friend and I. And the funny thing is, that concert had been rescheduled. So it was supposed to be a few months prior to that particular evening, and it had been rescheduled, I think, because of weather or something happened. And then when it finally came back around, my friend and I were like, well, do you still want to go? And I'm like, well, yeah, let's just go. We have the tickets. I could have just as easily escaped that night as well and not gone. And then who knows, something else could have happened somehow. I don't know. There's like a million possibilities. So it's just by chance what happens to you in life, and then how you react, how you prepare yourself, the mindset that you want to be in. I mean, it's just definitely not one thing. It has to be a combination of things and where you are. Everyone grows up different. Everyone has a different upbringing. I mean, in different even areas and times. I mean, there's people today that I meet that are like 10 years younger than me, and I'm like, you guys are just like still babies and you have so much available to you, and they just feel so much despair. And I'm like, you can make it okay. You can at least take that step towards knowing that you don't want it this way, and then go from there. So I hope that, I mean, I just want the best for people. Like, all my friends, I want all my friends to be happy. I just want things to be going well for them. I see them doing what they're doing. And then especially too, with being in this clinical rotation for physical therapy, I see people hurt. I see people hurting, like just like car accidents, just like something that they've been dealing with all their life, and they're coming in, but they're at least doing it and coming in. And they have to put the work in too. They have to do the exercises at home. They have to deal with me doing joint molds on their fingers when their fingers hurt, like, right? And so it's super rewarding for me to get up in people's space, and I get to talk to them this whole entire time, and like, I get to hurt them sometimes, but in the long run, it makes them feel better. And so that's also super cool for me.
It sounds like you certainly found your calling.
I dig it. It's a really cool thing. I get to help people and get them off painkillers and make them stronger, and I get to be all up in their space too. So that's cool. I love talking to people. Like, I've been a server since I was like 15, so like that now comes pretty naturally to me too. And being able to read people, being able to, figure out what they need and what works for them. That's a skill that I absolutely attribute to serving, right? So that's gonna help me go forward too, which is also a pretty cool thing. That kind of is it, covers it. I mean, there's more we can get in detail. I love talking. I'll talk your ear off all day, but
I mean, I would love to do, I feel like we should do another one for sure sometime.
Yeah.
But I think we could probably wrap it up today, unless is there anything else specific that you want to say?
I think I've, in a roundabout way, already said it. It's just not one thing. It's a combination of things, and I'm grateful for the personality and the soul that I was given in the place and time that I was put on this earth, and in this particular avatar, this human body, where I am so fortunate to have opportunities available to me, because I know it's hard for some people, that some people just right off the bat, they're dealt a terrible hand, right, with not many opportunities. So I also want to say that that's definitely an aspect, and I feel super fortunate to be given these opportunities and be able to be aware of them, and kind of be able to go from there. So it's just not one thing that this is the magic pill that's going to clear up everything for you. A lot goes into it, and you just have to be aware that there are resources available to you to go forward. But man, if someone isn't happy, I would hope that they would take a moment to consider that there are possibilities to change and kind of redirect their path going forward. I don't want anybody stuck. It's a terrible feeling. So I hope that this can hopefully offer something to someone.
Excellent. I think, it's offered something to me already, so you've already offered something.
Cool.
I have thoroughly enjoyed this interview and hearing more of your story. It's so inspiring. Just your perseverance and your ability to do what needs to be done for yourself to create the life that you want. You really took ownership of your reality and did what needed to be done to create the life you want. And look at you now. You're recently engaged in a happy, healthy, successful partnership. You are about to graduate with your degree for physical therapy assistant. That's huge. You found your calling and you love it. And just yes to all of this. Thank you so much for sharing. I have a couple of questions that I wanted to ask you at the end of the interview, one of which you kind of already answered. It is, if you could tell every human on the planet one thing, what would it be?
I think just kind of understanding the being aware of the gravity of the fact that nothing is permanent. And I know there are times that seem like this is never going to end. This is always going to be the situation. Just feeling and living in that and feeling that there's no escape and that it's just hopeless and the despair. Nothing is permanent. Even good things can be taken away. And that's why I have to really be adamant about being grateful for what I have, because I now have what I prayed for, and I prayed to a God that I did not believe in for so long, just to be happy. And so I'm grateful every day for what I have. But nothing is permanent. And I know that this is going to change too. And hopefully it's going to change and continue in a good way, but things go up and down, right, too. So, but just being aware that nothing is permanent.
The only constant is change.
Definitely.
Katie, what is your current life motto or mantra?
Oh gosh. Well, in the mornings on my drive to my clinical rotation, and I've been trying to get in the habit of just repeating and like reaffirming to myself. And this is going to sound so funny, but it like really stuck with me. I saw this on TikTok, and I know it just sounds terrible to say that. I hate saying it, but it really makes me feel better. So it goes, I am healthy, I am wealthy, I am rich, I am that bitch. And I changed it. I said, I'm going to go get that grade, and I'm not going to take your shit. I'm well respected, I'm protected. I do what I want to do, and I'm who I want to be.
That's beautiful.
It makes
Every
me
day.
feel good. Yeah, I try and say it a couple of times a day. So that's what I found right now. I love it.
Own it, girl. Own it. Who cares where it came from? That's incredible.
Yes. Yep.
So one last question.
Mm-hmm.
I have a feeling people are going to want to connect with you. How can people connect with you?
Oh, yes. Yep. They can find me on Instagram. My handle is, I think, oh my gosh, I don't even remember my Instagram right now. I think it's, oh gosh, I know it ends in 10/22 because that's my birthday, but
I'm trying to look it up right now for you.
I'm so sorry. I'm not on this. It's WEKAMARO 10/22.
Okay, that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So
any
that's
meaning
me,
behind that? I'm curious.
Yeah. So
if you care to share.
Yeah. So do you remember from a long, long time ago the comedian Dane Cook?
I do.
So he had a bit about oh gosh, this is so stupid. It was about back in the day was a Wednesday. Do you remember at all that joke thing? Oh my gosh, I don't know. It was from when I was in my teens, so like a very, very, very long time ago. And so WE stands for Wednesday, KA stands for Katie, MA stands for Marie, and RO stands for Rondo. So it's Wednesday, Katie Marie Rondo. It's my name. It was just something I thought of. So
I love it. I love it.
It's so weird, I know, but that's
Hashtag
it.
Dane Cook.
Hashtag Dane Cook. Oh boy. I used to love him back in the day.
I never got super into him. I know people loved him a lot though. I really like comedians that like aren't vulgar and don't use swear words, because I think that takes a lot of skill to still make a room full of people laugh.
I agree with you. Yeah, that was not Dane Cook. So
nope.
Oh goodness.
Well, I just want to thank you once again for coming on and sharing your story with me and with the community. I haven't named the podcast yet, but with the podcast community. And I just thank you so much.
Absolutely. It's been an honor. And like I said, thank you for allowing me to have a safe space to come and be vulnerable and share. And it was also part of my healing process too, absolutely. So it allowed me to think of a lot of things I haven't thought of in a long time and make some connections that I hadn't previously made. So it was just as beneficial for me as it was for you. And I hope if anybody has questions, if anything, I would love to chat, to talk, and be there for someone else too. So,
yeah, excellent. And we have your contact information.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode. As you can tell, this was my first interview, and I am figuring out how to interview and remember that there's listeners. So I just kind of ended awkwardly. So you get this bonus clip of me now saying thank you so much. I really appreciate that you listened to this episode. I know it means a lot to Katie as well. And if it spoke to you, if you think it would speak to a friend, go ahead and share it with them, like it, give it a 5-star review, leave a comment. That helps to spread the word so that it can reach further and wider. I'd love to have conversations about this on social media. So on Instagram at Wise Human Podcast or Facebook at Wise Human Podcast. Write your thoughts underneath one of the posts about this podcast and let's start a conversation. If you can relate or if something spoke to you. I really want this to become a community space, somewhere where it's not just you tune in and listen, but it's interactive and we build a community. And that's not just me seeking my thoughts and ideas, but everybody contributing, because we really do have so much we can learn from each other. And I think when we support each other and walk together, it lightens the load a little, Until next time, have a beautiful day, night, wherever you are.